I'm going to be the moderator of this panel discussion. I'm not a travel industry professional. I'm a radio presenter and journalist based here in Dubai. But my panelists are experts in this industry and many of the issues surrounding it. Particularly, we've got a heavy bias towards technology today. The title of this panel is The Big Picture: Who will sell travel best in the future? Who will sell it best in the future? So I'm going to welcome up my panelists one by one. First of all, from Facebook, please welcome Terry Kane. From Sabre Labs, we have Ben Vinod. He's the chief scientist at Sabre Labs, and Ben is the only one of our panelists who's traveled from out of town to be here. Terry's based here in Dubai with Facebook. Gentlemen, if you can make your way towards the front, please. If we can have Fouad Talat as well, please, the regional manager of Booking.com. Fouad also based here in Dubai. We have from Emirates, representing the aviation sector, Senior Vice President, B2B, Corporate and Leisure, Matt Rouse from Emirates is here. Matt, join us, please. Thank you very much indeed. And finally, from Google, Regional Business Lead for Travel and Retail, Charbel Sarkis from Google. So, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for being with us today. Now, just because you didn't see them as they walked up, for the avoidance of confusion, I will tell you who is who, and you have to memorize this because there are no nameplates. This is Charbel. Say hi, Charbel.
Hello.
That's Matt from Emirates. That's Fouad from Booking.com. Ben from Sabre. Ben's traveled from Dallas to be here today. So a big round of applause for Ben because he's traveled a long, long way. And Terry from Facebook is at the end. Right then. First question, and Charbel, I'll start with you. The theme for ATM this year is technology and innovation, which is, I guess, why they've invited people like you along. We've had a good decade or more of technology and innovation and disruption already in ATM, and many of those discussions have been had already in ATMs gone past. So what's new and different this year?
I think there are a few things that are different. But I think the industry is coming also at a time where things are converging. And multiple themes, even if they existed in the past, are being accentuated today. And the big ones, to your question about disruption, that we think are playing a key role in that, are first mobile. And I'm sure you touched on mobile for a long period of time. But mobile, the thing with mobile, if you think back about the industry 20 years ago, how we used to conduct our trip booking, we used to do it in one session, right, with the travel agents. 10 years ago with the desktop, we used to do it in a few sessions, right, but still sitting with our laptop. Today, it's happening very differently. It's happening in micro moments. And these micro sessions have deep implication on the travel journey from a user point of view. It's implying longer journey, around 35, 36 days, and it's implying multiple touch points, more than 45. And no one destination is able to cope or address all of these kind of research queries, if you like, that are embedded in any travel journey. Add to it that expectations of travelers on mobile are different from desktop, right? There is this concept of liquid expectation where users are comparing any travel destination to an immediate gratification app like the Uber or Careem of the world. So expectations are different as well. And add to it the cultural change that we're seeing today, right? Travelers, you see the millennials now becoming a core travel segment. And with this, their expectations and their needs are different. They value experiences, authentic ones, and they value personalization. And we're seeing a lot of growth in the gastro tourism and the ecotourism that is growing faster than the normal industry. But also we're seeing disruption from different types of inventory, the private lodging, etc. And the key one, and that's new, it's about data and machine learning, right? And I'm sure we're going to touch a lot on this in this session today. But think about this. Every day on Google, we see 15% new queries that we've never seen before, right? This is massive, and this is enabling technologies like machine learning to process data and become much smarter in understanding users and predicting their needs. All in all, this is happening in an industry, let's keep this in mind, travel online is around 50% of the total travel pie. Compare this to retail, it's at 10%, right? So this industry is far along, right? The digitization curve, and players have been entrenched in their habit for a long time, right? So steering this boat within all these changes that are happening is not an easy task. And this is why disruption is being felt in that sense.
Thank you very much indeed. Charbel mentioned millennials there. Do we have many millennials in the room today? We do have a few. Well, we'd love to hear from you soon, and we will come for comments and questions shortly. I'm a million miles away from qualifying as a millennial. Matt Rouse from Emirates, if I can get your perspective on this as by some measures, the world's biggest airline. Again, you've been through so much digital disruption and transformation already. What's left to be disrupted?
Well, I think, Richard, the challenge we have and the challenge all the participants on this panel have is that we're part of a broader ecosystem. There's no one player in the room that can do everything for everyone on their own. So when you're a customer-focused organization, you need to embrace what Charbel was just talking about micro queries across multiple sessions with different players, because ultimately we're in the business of putting together somebody's entire trip, which starts from the planning and the inspiration phase, right through to the traveling on board on an airline like us, but also at the destination and the experiences somebody has, and then on the way back home. So we need to acknowledge that we're participants in that ecosystem, and we need to find a way to work together so that we can deliver customers what they want. Because when we look at travel and distribution, we're conscious, we're in the business of taking people from where they are to where they want to go. But when it comes to selling to them, we need to go where they are already, which means in this world of the Instagram and the Facebook and searches and queries and online and offline and with traditional channels. So it's about making the whole industry work together and to proceed at a pace that's not set by the slowest participant in that chain.
Ben Vinod, if I can get your perspective from the perspective of Sabre, your organization, and also your perspective from the United States. You have a slightly different perspective to everyone else here. What's left to be disrupted? So much has changed in the, 15 years that you've been at Sabre in one guise or another. What is left to still change?
From my perspective, probably the biggest disruption we are seeing in the industry today is the fact that consumer expectations are changing rapidly. So from that perspective, what I really mean is that in today's world, we kind of live in a AI, machine learning enabled landscape. So I think a lot of the airlines we work with and a lot of the suppliers that we work with, a key focus is what we call as intelligent retailing. It's more of a generic term, intelligent retailing. What it actually means is that what consumers are really asking for is they want to be in a position to see information that is relevant for them. They don't want to see generic information. In today's world, when you typically go ahead and do a shop and a book process, you typically see the same information across all customers. So that is something that is going to change over the next couple of years, where you have to do online segmentation of your customers and show content that is very relevant for them. So towards that end, a simple example is you don't always have to show the lowest fare, right? But you may want to show the best fare, which is based on the actual consumer's preferences. Because the context for travel is a significant factor in determining what that best fare is. Are you going on a business trip? Are you going on a leisure trip? So that is a key trait that we typically see. But besides the fact that that in itself is important, there's also the personalization element that is becoming important. So while segmentation is important, where you can give relevant content to a segment of the population, what we're also seeing is that there is a greater need for one-to-one personalization. So because you are the person that is actually engaging with a travel agent or engaging directly on a consumer direct website, we want to be in a position to give you a tailored response that is meaningful for you for a segment of one. So because of the changing consumer expectations, this is a big change that we see. The second thing that I think is also could become very important over the next few years is blockchain. I know there's a lot of hype around blockchain in terms of why blockchain may or may not be important for travel, but the work that we've been doing in that space, what we typically find is that there's an opportunity for blockchain in the context of payments, in the context of interline ticketing, in the context of loyalty, and also for fraud protection. So these are some of the key traits that we see.
Thank you very much indeed. Fuad, Booking.com, when the history of digital disruption in the travel industry is written, Booking.com will get its own chapter, maybe even its own book. You've been at the heart of what's happened, and almost a kind of poster child for disruption in certainly the hotel industry, but the travel industry more broadly. But a similar question to you, what's next in terms of digital technology and innovation?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I think we touched base quickly on that in the morning, that the era of, or some of us think that we're in an era of disruption. I think we way surpassed that already. Like, I personally believe that we're in an era of powerful customers. Marketeers says that today's consumer have nearly endless range of options when it comes to where do you want to go, where to book, and how to do it. And it's all available at their fingertips. So the power of consumer comes here from the choice of comparison. And also, accommodation partners have the power as well. It's the power of choosing their distribution channels and where to be available online. With the advancement of technologies and the increase in connected devices, what we're seeing here is that the expectation to what or about is possible is changing rapidly. So customers' expectation towards different platforms are changing as well. And believing that what was believed in the past to be impossible is becoming possible. So the disruption here, or what we refer to as a disruption or the transformation, is happening because of the rapid change in the customer expectations and also the continuous advancement of technologies, be it mobile, blockchain, or AI, or augmented, or visual VR, augmented or reality. So all of that are factors that are changing the customer behavior and expectations.
Finally, Terry, from Facebook, your perspective. We spoke on the radio this morning, and quite facetiously I was joking, but I said, this is a travel conference. What are you doing here? And your answer was actually quite a lot. So where does Facebook fit into all this in the context of what's left to be disrupted?
So I think that many of the responses that everyone else has given today, I would echo and reiterate them from the perspective of, mobile has been one of the core drivers of this, of disruption in the past. The people are at the core and the center of disruption, and expectations are consistently changing. And look, our general sense is that disruption is going to get even greater, but it's going to be different type of disruption. Disruption is not going to be focusing necessarily, and not only focusing, on the big ideas, but certainly focusing on the more minutiae ideas in the consumer journey throughout their travel experiences, from the discovery to the booking to the actually experiencing. And this is going to be focusing on the, as we discussed this morning, on the friction conversation, because still in travel today, there is an enormous amount of friction at every single step of the journey. And just Charbel coming in today and getting into the ATM today and getting your pass, there was friction there. And mobile can, the mobile solutions can help remove a lot of these frictions. And we've seen this in the past with, Uber was not the first taxi company, but they removed the friction. They removed the friction of standing and waiting. And expectations are now set that you will not wait for more than 7 minutes for your Uber, or you'll move on to the next driver or the next app, etc. So expectations are consistently changing. People are getting higher expectations. And in the moment that one company solves a friction problem, the expectation is reset. So I don't think disruption is in any way, shape, or form done in the travel industry. In fact, I think it's just beginning. And the role that we play in this is about currently 2.7 billion people on our platforms, various different platforms that are doing various different things, and we look to encourage the disruption at each of those stages of the journey.
Well, I mean, I would imagine that pretty much everyone in the room is a fairly regular consumer of all 5 of the organizations represented here in one way or another. Let me quickly go to the floor to ask the question. And it's a simple yes or no show of hands. And I put it to you that the era of disruption is over. We've had the disruption, and now we're in for a period where we're going to be plateauing and have relative stability. And then maybe in 15 years' time, there'll be another wave of disruption. But my thesis is that the era of disruption is largely over. Who would agree with that? Throw me a bone here, guys. Okay, so we can assume then, and I'm going to come to the floor for your comments and questions very soon. We can assume then that we have got more disruption to come. Let's talk about something that a couple of you mentioned, artificial intelligence, and how that's going to change things. And it's a buzzword that media guys like me love to throw around. But Charbel, in real, practical terms for people in this room, how is artificial intelligence going to change the way that they buy travel over the next 5 years?
Sure. Very simply, I think there are a few elements that are already changing. By the way, when you talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence, and it's not something in the future. It's happening today. It has happened already.
Can you hear Charbel, or is it a bit faint? A bit faint. Maybe if you move that microphone up a little bit. I know you were playing with it earlier, because we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Is this better? Great. First one is the interface on which we book, right? You think about machine learning, it has different modules and different algorithms that do different things. One of them is natural language processing that enables speech recognition, right, in a certain way, I enable the processing of
Talking of speech
language.
recognition, I'll tell you what, Charbel, if you look towards the audience, it'll be better. If you turn towards me, the microphone doesn't pick you up.
Fantastic.
I won't think you're being rude.
Think about this today. 50% of total queries are on mobile, and 20% of them are already happening on voice, right? So, and voice is a natural interface. We actually, throughout the history, we communicate in voice. The internet over the last 20 years was counterintuitive to our habits. Machine learning and natural language processing is giving this us back. And not only voice, in a way that is assistive. So the interface is kind of changing in motion, and the type of assistance that we get is also very smart and based on a set of data that are related to us or to people kind of in the same behavior that us, but also to a lot of contextual signal. And what it does, it predicts certain behavior, predicting and personalizing the entire experience of a traveler. If I'm a first-time visitor to Rome, I have very different expectations of my trip than someone who's been to Rome already 5 times and who's going on a business trip. And with the power of machine learning and personalization and predictive analysis, the machine will be able to differentiate between these two individuals and predict things that are very different to that. And I think a layer on top of it that comes with machine learning is automation. And automation sometimes is a customer-facing thing, but also has a lot to do with everything that happens in the background. Take a travel agency, for example, or an OTA. If they deal with customer service via email, machine learning can help prioritize these emails and rank them in terms of priority, depending on the urgency of certain requests to change a trip that is about to happen in the next 2 hours, versus others that just want to say thank you for a great experience. And machine learning can do all of that. And it's already in motion, and we're seeing it today.
You mentioned speech there, and Ben from Sabre and I were chatting briefly earlier on about chatbots. I know you've written about chatbots, and you say that actually you think they're quite inefficient, they're still quite slow. Explain why that's your thesis and put it into your own words, and then pick up maybe on some of the comments Charbel made about the potential of voice and speech.
I think chatbots are an important element for mid-sized travel agencies. They expect companies like Sabre to deliver chatbot solutions. Maybe the larger travel agencies, the globals, probably have their own solutions, but they expect us to do that. But in the context of chatbots, probably the three most important things is the relevance of the content that is actually included in the actual interaction with the customer. That's number one. Trust is a second factor, and security is a third factor. So these are typical factors that are important for the success of a chatbot application.
So Charbel, to pick up on that, how do you overcome those issues, those trust issues, for example?
These are real issues, and I don't think as an industry we can say that all of these are already in the past, right? At the end of the day, it's an emerging technology. Use cases are being developed, and a lot of challenges, including privacy and safety of communication, is being also considered. I think, look, we've also come a long way on the privacy discussion. There is a lot more, right, that continue to be done. But I think a lot of the rules that apply to the internet in general can't be transported also to the new environment that is voice.
I'm going to go to the floor for comments or questions from the audience. Who's got the first question for our audience this morning? Some of my colleagues have got microphones that they can bring to you. Yes, please, sir. The gentleman right in the middle row here. If you could tell us your name, please, and your brief question, please.
Hello, my name is Andre. I'm having a question to the Facebook representative. I think it was a pretty valid point about the friction which customers can have in order to book or in order to choose the right accommodation. I, of course, know that Facebook is not a typical tourism or a traveling platform, but still, is Facebook planning to remove some kind of frictions in order to help their customers or users to book online an accommodation? Or you want to be still like not really selling platform and you just keep how it is now? Because I think there are many frictions at the moment on Facebook how to book an accommodation.
Yeah, it's a good point and a good, obviously, conversation on the bots conversation as well, because my answer would be around personalization. In terms of us creating an OTA type interface on Facebook as a platform and a news feed, or Instagram, it's not on the radar immediately. Won't say it won't come in the future, but right now we're focusing on creating the infrastructure in order to enable providers and service providers to do that on their platforms, but shortening the distance of the journey. And a good example of this, and I've put it into human terms and into people terms, it's if I want the most personal experience, it's probably going to be on WhatsApp or on Messenger for me as an individual. That's where I converse with the people that are most important to me in the small groups, etc. And where we would see the inevitability coming is that becomes much more of a utility. So we should be able to book our flights through WhatsApp and Messenger. We should be able to get our boarding passes. We should be able to book accommodation through WhatsApp and Messenger directly. And then we should be able to retain all that information within those platforms in order for us to turn up at the gates of any airline and say, here's my boarding pass in WhatsApp, instead of having to remember your password, username for that application or that website, which in many, many scenarios are not great experiences because of multiple reasons. What we want to do for businesses, which will help people inevitably, is to remove those technical barriers. So you can do it on Facebook, you can do it in Instagram, on Messengers, etc., in order to remove the friction points, the simple friction points that we think we can solve for today. But we're still at very early stages of this, and AI and bots are at very, very early stages, and we recognize that. So you'll see various different experiences today on Messenger, but go check out KLM. On Facebook Messenger, and Singapore Airlines on WhatsApp, etc. So they are coming, and to the point earlier, when expectations are set, everyone else is going to have to meet them, and then someone else is going to change them, and then you're going to have to meet them. Or else the biggest risk to all of our business is that someone else will do it for us, and that's lost business.
Ben.
Yeah, just a quick point on frictionless travel. something that we tend to overlook, which I think is going to gain in importance over the next 5 years, is virtual interlining. So virtual interlining is a very integral component of in the future of travel, because if you think about Sabre, for example, as a marketplace, we have a large number of airlines, a large number of hotels, but we may not have some of the low-cost carrier content directly in our marketplace. Likewise, we may not have connectivity to a rail application or to a rail provider. So one thing that's going to gain in importance over the next few years is virtual interlining, which is a capability for any entity, whether it's a marketplace or otherwise, to basically be able to connect the dots. So this is actually a fairly complicated problem, because the connecting times between an airline that is in a marketplace versus not in the marketplace, external work has to be done to make sure that the connections can actually be made. So you can actually go on, say, a network airline like British Airways, and then you can connect to an EasyJet, and then take a rail as for the last segment of your journey. So that's what I mean by virtual interlining. So this is going to gain in importance in the context of frictionless travel. And if you take virtual interlining to the next level, it's door-to-door. Basically, how do you get your taxi or your Uber from your home to the airport, and also how do you take care of the same at your destination?
Well, Matt, at Emirates, how do you fit into this interlining vision that Ben has articulated? And to put that in some kind of context, we should stress that you're the B2B side of Emirates, whether that's corporate travel or block booking of retail travel through travel agents, rather than us individuals booking flights on Emirates.com. But nevertheless, I'd be keen to get your thoughts on that interlining in the idea of friction and frictionless. And then, Fouad, I'll come to you with a similar question about friction and becoming frictionless. But Matt first.
Well, I think the fundamental starting point here is trying to understand and address what the customer really wants to do. So start from a customer viewpoint. And then I think make sure that the products and services you deliver enable that. So the famous frictionless piece of travel that we have at Emirates is the chauffeur drive service we provide for customers in first and business class. I think when it comes to how you distribute that and enable that, it looks great on Emirates.com. It looks fantastic in our app, and these are environments we control. We want it to be just as good an experience for somebody booking via one of the industry platforms like a Sabre GDS, to deliver the same promise to the customer. I think for too long our industry has been fixated on comparisons across three things only, being the schedule, the availability, and the price point. But we know that customers want more than that when they're making their travel decisions. So we try to take the friction out by offering products. I think the chauffeur drive is a famous one. I think a more recent one that we've launched is a home check-in service here in the UAE, so that you can take the friction out of the experience of getting your bags to the airport with your family for the holiday. I think we're also working with, say, the airport providers here and the authorities there, because this is a zone where there's a lot of safety and security regulation, but to try and develop a biometric path through Dubai Airport. So I think we're working on it in a number of ways. I think the message we want for the audience is we'd like everyone to be able to join along with us as we deliver that promise to the customers, because we think the organizations that focus on the customer are the ones that prosper well into the future.
Fouad, where's the friction in your ecosystem, and what are you doing to iron it out?
Very good. So my comment in that, I would address your question, but also the point earlier about AI and how we can take friction out of the travel process. So at Booking.com, it has been always our sole focus is on enhancing the consumer experience, also the partner's experience. And we already think of ourselves at Booking.com that we are a customer-first AI company. And what does it mean? It means that the application of any technology, be it machine learning, AI, virtual reality, augmented reality, whatever it is, we do it for the sake of enhancing the experience of our customers. So we identify areas where there's a friction points, where there are needs and demands, and we're always led by those needs and demands to create more customized, personalized experience. But if we don't experiment with technologies and deploy technologies for the sake of it. We have been testing and experimenting for years with that, but we don't do it for its own sake. If it doesn't take friction away, if it doesn't make the experience of the consumer more intuitive, then we don't heavily invest in it and we don't put energy in it. And we have the culture at Booking.com where we always have been a customer-first company, and that have always helped us in the way how we develop, prioritize. And the answer to the question of why have been always is how it will help the customers to improve, how it's going to help to improve the experience of the customers, how it's going to make the experience more intuitive.
Well, give me an example of one area of friction or problem at the moment that you're looking at that AI or machine learning could help to solve.
And I wanted to touch base on that is our chatbot. If you're not familiar with it, on the Booking app today, our chatbot, which is called the Booking Assistant, can respond to customers instantaneously. And I'm happy to share with you that today, 60% of all English queries are handled automatically by the chatbot. Of course, it works in concert with the traditional customer service, and we are constantly developing it, but this is where we are going today.
Keen to take some more comments or questions, and I'm particularly keen, if possible, to address the profound gender imbalance that we have on the stage today. But who's got the next comment or question for our audience, please? Yes, please, the lady on my far left, your far right. Thank you. There's a microphone on its way to you.
Thank you. Hi, gentlemen. My name's Charlotte. Hi, Fuad. I have a Booking.com question. How concerned is Booking.com about Google entering into the hotel space?
Okay, where's Google? Charlotte, hey. Okay, so Charvel is here, so no.
Should we get a boxing ring up here? Maybe that would be more appropriate.
So at Booking.com, we're constantly, to your point, we're constantly looking at new and different ways to engage with our consumers. This includes everything from testing with how we connect with consumers through social, TV ads, paid advertisement on Google, to also the way how we approach SEO and how we work with aggregators, metasearch, affiliates. However, of course, our sole and ultimate goal is to drive loyalty and for our consumers to come back directly to us. And I'm happy we are proud and happy and also lucky to have a very, very strong brand awareness in this region. And we see more and more customers coming to us directly.
Charbel, Google was mentioned in there. To what extent are you going to ramp up your role as an OTA, for example, over the next 5 years?
Look, at the heart of what we do at Google, if you look at our business model, what we do is we try to give good answers and relevant answers to what our customers and users, to what our users are looking for. And we try to do this for every single query, for every single user, every single time. We are not in the business of providing more than that. If you think about what an OTA does, beyond aggregating content and displaying it in the right way, etc., they are the merchant of record, and they handle customer service, and they do a ton of other activities that is not necessarily a fit with our business model. So the short answer is that we're focused on the user. We're focusing on answering user travel-related questions with answers that can lead to our partner sites, be it OTAs or hotels or airlines. We are not in the business of becoming an OTA.
Happy to take a couple more comments or questions from the audience. Who's got the next question for our panelists today? We have a question right at the back of the room. Thank you very much indeed, sir.
Hi, my name is Nigel. This question is for Facebook. We've seen a lot of disruption, but not so much of disruption in the area of payment. When do you think WhatsApp payment is going to be enabled?
So it is. It is already in certain countries, and obviously with jurisdiction differences around the world, we can only roll it out according to the jurisdictions of the country. But we are in beta testing in India and certain sub-Saharan African countries for peer-to-peer payments on WhatsApp. We fully recognize the size and scale of the economy that's going on in WhatsApp currently without being more structured in its setup. So one of our core focuses now is to roll out this B2B model in WhatsApp, and the B2B model encouraging micropayments and peer-to-peer payments as well as larger scale business solutions. So to the question on earlier regarding Facebook company becoming more involved in the distribution cycle, I think this is probably one of the examples of it inevitably going to come. And I think if you put this into the human term, again, the more people-orientated term, your WhatsApp should be your personal concierge to multiple things in life, and travel is certainly one of those things which would be key in the radar. But we'll build the platform and we'll enable it for other companies to build into it, as we're doing right now. The beta stage of travel companies, Singapore Airlines, Uber, another couple of our key partners, alpha partners, sorry, are in testing right now, and more of this is going to come. It's great to check out WhatsApp/business for those examples of who's coming, because it is coming, and payments is a key part of that as well.
Matt, at Emirates, when you hear something like that about booking via WhatsApp, WhatsApp becoming a payment channel, I'm thinking of a broader question about how you might use social media channels in the future. Now, of course, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp is the world's biggest, but particularly for the B2B corporate side of your business, potentially LinkedIn, and of course that's part of Microsoft, could offer potential, but platform agnostic, social media as a platform for you as a B2B salesperson within Emirates, what's the potential, if any?
I think there is some potential there. I think there's a more immediate use case on the B2C side, and we particularly see that with our younger travelers and the millennial travelers using the inspiration tools from things like Instagram. I think where this question is going is the complexity of some of the relationships among the players on this stage. So, for example, when we talk about Microsoft and LinkedIn, we work very closely with them on a number of technology developments at Emirates. And equally, they're a very large corporate customer of ours on the B2B side. And I think we have a number of these relationships with everyone here. So Sabre is one of our GDS technology providers. We also use some of their business intelligence tools. So this is why we really talk about it as an ecosystem of opportunity. And I think, back to my earlier comment, it's really about focusing on the end customer and their travel requirements that will help you prosper and move forward.
Richard, if I may jump back in on this one, I think one of the big challenges with the travel industry, where it's not stepped up to where the retail and the e-commerce industry is today on our platforms and multiple other platforms to that point, is that we're still framing this in the mind of social media. We're still framing it in the mind of likes and shares, etc., as the key metrics of success. Well, no, the key metrics of success of our platform should be exactly the same as all other distribution platforms. It should be the conversation that the boardroom are having on, did that activity that you ran, did that investment that you ran on whatever platform deliver the results that you're expecting? And we would say that there's so many opportunities yet to be maximized in simple things like implementing pixels properly on websites. There's so much information flowing through there. Implementing SDK, standard developer kits on your apps. It's crazy the amount of information that's not being utilized by travel companies by not doing the most simple things, and then overlaying that with all of the behavioral and interest information that we provide all companies in the marketplace. So e-commerce and retailers are fast moving on this, and I think we've got a job to do, obviously, as Facebook in terms of educating the marketplaces into the potential beyond just the social media conversation of likes and shares and views, etc.
Happy to take a couple more questions. Who's got the next question or comment for our panelists? I've got loads, but I'd much rather give you this opportunity. 5 incredible speakers here this afternoon. Keep thinking about those questions, because I will give you an opportunity before we wrap up. Ben, one of the things that you mentioned before we came on air, when we were communicating before this event was the need for targeted offers. You said if there's one thing people need to remember, it is targeted offers. Explain what you mean by that and why you think it's important, and then in practice, how you think it's going to work in terms of distribution channels, whether it's, you know, your organization or the 4 customer-facing organizations that we also have on the panel.
I think in today's world, what is really happening is that if you look at the last 10 years, the base airfare has actually gone down by 1%, but ancillary revenues have grown by 40%. So what that actually means is, so last year, for example, according to IdeaWorks, they came back and made a statement that the total ancillary revenues was $93 billion. So what that actually means is that in the airline industry, what is becoming very important is not just to sell the base fare, but the base fare plus the ancillaries combined. But keeping in mind there are many, many ancillaries out there, there are many permutations and combinations in terms of what can constitute a bundle. What is becoming very important is to make sure that you basically present the right bundle to the right customer at the right price at the right time. So to do that, the way we do that is we actually use some machine learning techniques in terms of how we can do the segmentation of passengers in real time. In addition to that, we can build a recommendation. We can also have recommendation engines that can actually create the targeted offers that will resonate with a specific customer. And this works on the direct channel. In the indirect channel, it's no different. Especially in the future, when you go to IATA's new distribution capability, the IATA NDC capability, the intent is exactly the same. The seller, the airline, will be able to push the same content into a marketplace so an agent can actually look at this information and then interact with the consumer.
When it comes to offers and targeted offers, Fuad, a quick question for you, and we're short of time, but very, very briefly. We know that aggregators like yours, OTAs, typically demand equivalence in hotel rates. You don't like hotel owners having special offers on their own or different platforms. It's more complicated than that, but that's a broad principle. So how would Ben's world of targeted special offers fit with the contracts most people have in place with the likes of you and your competitors?
Okay. Well, we know that pricing is an important factor when it comes to the consumer decision, but it's not the only factor that influences the consumer decision. Just want to clarify that part. But then talking about how do we work towards offering and pricing, of course, it is our topmost priority is to provide our customers with the most compelling prices. So whatever prices are available out there, we will always seek to provide our customers with the best price. We're constantly also testing with different ways to do it, and we are making good progress in that regard.
I'm going to wrap it up in a second. I've got time for one last question because we need to hand the room back. So who's got the final question? Rarely do you get 5 people like this on a panel prepared to ask your question. So the final question is going once, or else I will take it. Thank you, sir. Gentleman to my right, the final question. The microphone is coming to you. If you could introduce yourself and give us your question.
My name is Richard. I've been in the industry for 30 years on the technology side of it, so I know a lot about what you're talking about. My question is simply this, is that about 15 years ago, the industry went through disintermediation and the brave new world of direct booking over the web straight to the consumer. I wonder, actually, listening to all that you're talking about, who do you think benefits the most from all the technology that's coming through? It should be the consumer, but is it?
Well, what I'm going to do, it's a really, really good question because I know you're all focused on the consumer. So what I'm going to do is take Richard's question and ask you to respond to Richard's question, but also make that your concluding remarks and maybe give us a kind of a bold prediction or a big idea to leave with. So about a minute each of you to respond to Richard's question and to leave us with your final thoughts. Charbel, first of all.
Sure. I mean, surely it benefited users in general. It benefited them with discovering new type of experiences that they wouldn't have thought of without all of these technology advancements, but also gave them a ton of choice. Choice is good. Choice sometimes is a bit tricky. You know, I take this approach from the art gallery that I saw in one of McKinsey presentations. It's about how many paintings an art dealer would put in front of a typical customer. No more than 4. That's the golden rule, and create a bracket value to establish, you know, best one at a higher cost, it's cheaper one with an emerging artist, and then see where the conversation with the customer lead them. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that with machine learning, the ability to filter these choices a little bit based on who this customer is, their past behavior, what they are looking to do in the context today, will make this entire journey much, much easier. And in terms of prediction into the future, I think both, we mentioned voice, I think voice and personalization are gonna be a given in a word that's we're gonna be seeing in the next 5 years. And I think from a capability point of view, building database capabilities within organization, travel organization, to better understand the consumer in a systematic way and in an ongoing way is gonna be critical.
Charbel, thank you very much indeed. Matt.
I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I've heard many of the same comments about disintermediation, and I think every year I've been here, someone has predicted the death of the travel agent or the death of the travel industry, and it's all going to go away, and everyone's going to transact on websites. So my bold prediction is that travel agencies will be around for a long time to come. I think this broad travel ecosystem has to listen to customers because customer expectations are changing. So the ones who will survive and prosper into the future are the ones who will listen the best and adapt the fastest. I think that's actually a technology agnostic question. But my bold prediction, travel agents are here to stay.
Thank you very much indeed, Matt. They will be delighted to hear that. Fouad, you're kind of a travel agent, an OTA. Your response to Richard and a final thought.
Well, about being a travel agent, we like to think of ourselves as a marketing platform. But your point about technology and transformation, so we see technology as something that helps consumers to be more powerful. So technology gave consumers more options, but not only on consumers, but also on suppliers. So when I say suppliers here, I mean accommodation partners. So accommodation partners also have plenty of choice when it comes to where to put their property online and how to distribute it. And at Booking.com, our sole focus have been always set on removing friction and making the experience more intuitive for both customers and suppliers. It's a matter of fact today that we have on Booking.com more than 1.5 million properties, and that is a testament of how Booking.com is a very effective and efficient channel to bring in value, incremental business, and global reach. And how we have done that so far is by harnessing technology and innovation to remove friction. On every day we do more than 1,000 experiments, and 1.5 million room nights booked every 24 hours is a result of years and years of innovation. Bold predictions on the future, how it's going to look like, it's difficult. It's moving very fast. Customer expectations are changing rapidly. But what I would say is that consumers, what we can predict, or at least my personal opinion is that a consumer will continue to be even more powerful than before. You will continue to have more options, and accommodation partners would always have also more options than they ever had before.
Terry from Facebook.
So it's a lot to fill in 1 minute, so I'm going to have to talk very quick, and as an Irishman talking very quick, no one's going to understand. 20 years ago, I worked as a travel agent for STI Travel. My job at STI Travel was to book round-the-world tickets on Great Escapades in One World, etc. In July this year, I'm doing a round-the-world trip with my wife and my daughter. I can tell you it's much more complicated now to do that than it was 20 years ago. We have way, way, way more choice today than we did 20 years ago, but it's way more complicated. By the way, that's a pitch. If there's any travel agents in here, please come and talk to me afterwards. I'm very keen on seeing it. So the big prediction for the future is that this friction, what's got us to where we are today is not going to get us to where we need to be tomorrow. Friction is your greatest enemy in business, and you should be focusing on fixing for friction on every step of your journey, and that to me is the biggest disruptions that are going to come.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to leave the final thought to Ben Vinod.
It goes back to what I said
Sabre.
earlier.
Partly because you've traveled the furthest and partly because you've got a PhD.
It goes back to what I said earlier, that customer expectations are changing rapidly, and part of the reason it is changing is because there are other industries. For example, you have Apple as an example, who changed the game in terms of design. And so customer expectations are changing rapidly. So in that context, it's very important to keep in mind that the consumer at the end of the day is the winner, because consumers want to see targeted offers, targeted information that is relevant for them, as opposed to seeing generic information. In today's world, when you go back to an OTA or you go to an airline website, the information you typically see, what you see is the same thing that the next person sees. But you want to be in a position to make that more targeted, make it more precise, because that is the sure mechanism by which you can improve conversion rates. So improving conversion rates is very important, and one way to do that is to ensure that information that is given out is relevant. Also, one final point I want to make is that if you look at a lot of other industries in the artificial intelligence, machine learning space, industries like automotive and life sciences and telco are far, far more advanced than travel. So travel, I think it's in the early stages when it comes to deploying applications for cognitive insight and cognitive engagement to support what I just said. So I think the opportunity is very high, but I think the travel industry is also lagging some of the other verticals I just had pointed out.
And there we shall have to leave it. Thank you very much indeed to all of our panelists today, to Charbel from Google, Matt from Emirates, Fuad from Booking.com, Ben from Sabre, and Terry from Facebook.